Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling perception. It's more than meets the eye, right? We've got some interesting source material to dig into.
Yeah, and the core of this material, it all circles around this problem I think a lot of people can relate to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Achieving success, but still feeling unfulfilled.
It's like you check all the boxes. You
Yeah.
know, the career, the finances, the whatever.
Right, all the outward signs of success.
Yeah. And you still feel like
Something's missing.
there's a gap. And the source actually digs into this with some really relatable examples like the classic workaholic, crushing it at work, but their family life is a mess.
Absolutely. Or you see people who just struggle to stick to their goals, like healthy eating or finally writing that book they've always talked about.
Oh yeah, or that new workout routine.
Exactly. And it's funny, even in a workplace setting, you see this with managers who are genuinely trying to lead well, but their teams just never seem to feel that sense of loyalty.
That's a good point. So what's so interesting about this source is the author has years of experience working with individuals and organizations, and he pinpoints this disconnect, right?
Yeah.
As like a common thread.
Like a universal struggle.
Yeah, and instead of just, laying out a theory, the author brings in this personal story, and it really makes the whole thing come to light.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about his son who's having a tough time in school.
I can relate.
Yeah, like academics, social life, even sports.
Yeah.
It just seems like nothing is clicking for him.
Yeah, it's that parental experience that I think we can all relate to in some way,
Totally.
Wanting the best for your kid, but not really knowing how to help them overcome these obstacles.
And the author and his wife, I mean, they tried everything. The classic positive reinforcement, the pep talks, even defending him against criticism from, other people.
Trying to shield him.
Yeah, but even with all that effort, things just weren't improving. It was almost like their actions weren't leading to the changes they were hoping for.
It's a frustrating place to be.
Totally. And here's where the author's background comes in. He was really involved in research on communication and perception, particularly with IBM's Executive Development Program.
That's interesting. So he's teaching these high-level executives about this stuff, but not applying it at home.
Well, not yet.
Okay.
And this research exposed him to this idea called the Pygmalion effect.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Have you?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's the idea that high expectations can actually lead to better performance.
It's like if you communicate those high expectations, people tend to rise to the occasion, right?
Right. Like think about teachers who believe in their students.
Exactly.
They do better.
Right.
Or coaches who inspire their athletes.
They push harder to achieve those goals.
But the author, even though he's teaching this stuff to executives, he hasn't quite connected it to his own life yet.
I see. So he's got all this knowledge, but hasn't applied it personally.
It's so funny, right? Like sometimes we can miss the most obvious applications of what we know.
Absolutely. It happens all the time. So what happened next? Did he have like a light bulb moment or something?
He did. He had this huge realization. It just dawned on him that his own perceptions of his son might be contributing to his struggles.
Wow. So even with all the outward support, maybe his underlying beliefs were being communicated in some subtle way.
Exactly. So he's teaching these execs all about perception and how expectations really shape outcomes. But it hadn't clicked for him yet at home with his son.
It was a big moment, when he and his wife started looking inward and examining their own beliefs about their son.
Right. And what did they find?
Well, it wasn't exactly comfortable. They realized that underneath it all, despite all the encouragement and support, their underlying perception of their son was one of inadequacy, like he needed protecting.
So they were saying all the right things, but maybe their actions were telling a different story.
It's like there was this disconnect between their words and their deeper beliefs, and that's what perception is all about, right?
So much of it operates beneath the surface.
It influences our actions without us even realizing it.
It's like those subtle cues we all give off in conversations.
Yeah, a tone of voice, a hesitant gesture. These can speak volumes.
Louder than words, even.
Sometimes, and that's why it's so crucial to become aware of these underlying perceptions, especially the ones that might be working against us.
This makes me think about all those times I've struggled to reach a goal. Like when I tried to stick to that new workout routine, maybe deep down I had this perception of myself as undisciplined,
That's a powerful insight, and the author doesn't just leave us with this unsettling realization. He actually gives us some tools to work with.
Tools to change our perceptions.
Exactly. He emphasizes awareness as the first step we need to become conscious of our own perceptions, especially those that might be driving us in the wrong direction.
Okay, but how do you become aware of something that's operating below the surface, you know?
The source material suggests a few strategies. One is to pay attention to our emotional reaction.
Our emotions.
Yeah, when we have a strong emotional response, like frustration, anger, anxiety, it's often a sign that an underlying perception is at play.
So like a clue to dig deeper.
Exactly. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what's the perception that's driving this feeling?
Okay, so let's say I'm constantly getting frustrated with a colleague who misses deadlines. Instead of just labeling them as lazy or incompetent, I should ask myself, what's my perception of this person? And is it based on facts or just assumptions?
That's a perfect example. By bringing those hidden perceptions to light, we can start to question their validity. Are they based on evidence, or are they coming from past experiences, biases, fears that might not even be relevant anymore?
It's like holding up a mirror to our own minds, right?
And what we see might surprise us.
So we become aware of these potentially limiting perceptions. What's next? How do we actually change them? It feels like we've come to this crucial point, right? Like we've uncovered this power perception, how it can shape our actions, our relationships, even when we're not fully aware of it.
Right, and even how to bring those hidden perceptions to the surface.
Exactly. But how do we actually go about changing them?
Well, the source material is really clear on this. Simply becoming aware isn't enough.
So it's not just about thinking differently.
We have to actively challenge and shift those perceptions. And that means changing our behavior.
So aligning our actions with the new perception we want to create.
Exactly. Think about the author's story with his son. He realized that his perception of his son as inadequate was leading to actions that were actually reinforcing that perception.
Even though they were well-intentioned.
Right. So he made a conscious effort to change both his thinking and his behavior.
So what did that look like for him?
He started focusing on his son's strengths and potential rather than his weaknesses, giving him more responsibility, trusting him to handle things on his own, expressing confidence in his abilities.
So basically acting as if he was capable and competent.
Exactly.
That must have been a huge shift for them, considering their initial perception of him needing protection.
It wasn't easy, but the results were amazing.
Did his son resist these changes?
It wasn't an overnight transformation or anything, but he started responding to this new way of being treated. He took more initiative, became more confident, and his performance in school gradually improved.
It's like that change in perception created this ripple effect and led to real change in his life.
Yeah, it's a powerful example of how our perceptions can shape reality.
It's not just positive thinking. It's about aligning our actions with the beliefs we want to cultivate. But this all sounds a bit daunting,
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
I think the key is to start small. Identify one area of your life where you think your perception might be holding you back or negatively impacting your relationships.
Okay, so maybe it's at work or in a personal relationship or even just our perception of ourselves.
Right. Like, let's say you have a tendency to micromanage your team at work.
You could say that.
You tell yourself it's because you care about quality, but maybe deep down you don't trust them to do a good job without your constant oversight.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So you've identified a behavior and a potential underlying perception. Now challenge that perception. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this belief? What would happen if I started trusting my team more and gave them more autonomy?
And then experiment with changing your behavior.
Exactly. Delegate more. Resist the urge to intervene and see what happens.
It's like conducting an experiment with our own lives, testing out new perceptions and seeing what results we get.
You might be surprised by the positive changes that unfold.
That's really encouraging. It seems like the key to greater happiness, success, and fulfillment might just lie in the way we choose to see ourselves and the world around us.
I think that's a great takeaway from this deep dive.
It really has been quite a journey.
Our perceptions are incredibly powerful. They can limit us, but they can also empower us.
We hope this has given you some valuable insights and maybe even inspired you to examine your own perceptions.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.